Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw.
Okay. So we're gonna laugh, we're gonna cry. Can I make more coffee? If we're gonna have the best conversation ever, I think I need to be prepared. I can still hear you though. I mean, I can remember the first time I think when you think about a question like that, so many things come up. My mother used to have a dark room in the basement. And so I remember being a kid, like 5 years old, and my two sisters and I, my youngest was not yet born. We would sit on these stools. It was like an old basement bar that had been converted into a dark room, and she would develop photos. And sometimes she would let us, take the tongs and move the old film paper from one bath to another, and then also home movies and stuff. And it was really a family event. And it's not that my mother was such a talented photographer. I don't think she had anything, in the way of true artistic skills, but she was fascinated by it, and so we became fascinated by it. And so when I think of photography, you and I are of the age that we actually had to develop photographs. Um, I remember getting my first digital camera in 1997 in Hong Kong. But there was a whole magic to it, that things that happen in real life could be captured and somehow brought to have their own second life. And so there's the process of it, and then there's the I guess the delight of being able to store a memory in physical form.
Aaron Landis.
Yes, that's me.
Thank you. That's it. That was great. Everybody answers differently. Everybody has different connections to that question.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I totally remember that feeling of developing, the photos, the chemicals and everything. Hey, that was really nice. Thank you.
Well, thank you. She used to take home movies too, and it was
Nice.
they had no sound. It was before camcorders even. I'm dating myself here. And then what would happen is we had an old film projector in the house, and she would gather us around and she would play these films. But since they didn't have any sound, she would narrate.
Oh,
Yeah, and so she would, sort of. It was a lot of
that's
smiling and
sweet.
waving. There wasn't a whole lot going on.
So when I was a kid, the big thing for us was like, Daddy, play it backwards. So then when he'd play it backwards and the whole world would go backwards, that would make us giggle like
Funny.
freaks, right?
Funny.
Yeah.
I remember a lot of photos in the backyard. We had ducks growing up.
Nice. Oh, wow. So where did you grow up?
It was the suburbs of St. Louis. It's not a place to have
St.
ducks.
Louis. Okay. Well, okay. So just to anchor. So first of all, Aaron Landis, thanks for coming on the show. Thanks on the podcast. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
We met years ago
Do you remember where?
on Staunton Street at
No.
what's it?
No, we hung out there. That's not where we met.
Okay. Oh, no, so I don't remember. Tell me.
We met in a Subway sandwich shop in kind of Shungwan. If you walk
Okay.
up from, I guess from Queens Road,
Yeah.
if you walk up, it's a bit west of where the escalator is. I can't remember the name of the building, but it's a big gleaming, Hong Kong skyscraper, and it has its own escalator. It's not the escalator, but it has its own escalator to get into the entrance. And I was coming back from, I don't know when. I remember it was a sweaty day. I was running around. And
That's Hong Kong.
It's Hong Kong, yeah. And I took refuge in the subway because, I don't know, there was something like comfort foody about it. It felt familiar. I remember I was having a rough day of some sort. And then you started the conversation.
Yeah, I'm Mr. Friendly. Yep.
Yeah. So I'm not.
Consistent.
Like I unless I have a reason to start a conversation with a stranger.
You're like, leave me alone. I'm trying to eat a fucking sandwich.
No, that wasn't my response at all. I mean, I might have thought you were hitting on me or something. That happens, and usually one strange man. But I immediately recognized that you're Israeli, and of
Yeah.
course, I spent now I'm an Israeli citizen, but at the time it was just a memory. My family used to
Hmm.
spend time in Israel as a kid, so I immediately recognized that. And of course, there's the global Jewish kinship, and so I
Right.
was
Right.
that made me be much more friendly. But I remember thinking about it. I was like, wow, that guy he was so friendly with no agenda. Like he was just being friendly. That's so odd because I don't operate that way. Um,
So yeah, I was planning about like 10 plus years ago I was just laying the groundwork way back when to have you on the podcast.
there you go.
You see, thinking
Good
way ahead.
tell. That's impressive. What year was that, Ron? It was the 19.
uh,
It was maybe 2000. I think I was already living in Shanghai at that time, but I was back visiting.
I only moved to Hong Kong in 2003, 2004.
Okay, so
So
yeah, I was
yeah.
definitely living in Shanghai.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So look, Aaron, let's go into the first photo because you'll see because there's actually very little time, and I want to share with the world, and we're going to learn and share who you are through your
Okay.
photos.
Yeah.
What the reason why I asked you, and it's taken a long time to get us together for the podcast.
Uh-huh.
You're in Israel at the moment,
Yes.
because you're one of these people who you have this kernel, this germ, this thing inside you as an entrepreneur that I want to share with the world because I find that very inspiring.
Sure. But I'm gonna immediately correct you in your
Please
terminology.
do.
I don't
Please do.
I don't I don't conceive of myself as an entrepreneur at all these days.
Okay.
Even though I do things that are, maybe unconventional and some of them relate to business. Um, I don't know, recall who it was, but somebody famous noted that the term entrepreneur really ought to mean somebody who creates markets and who creates job opportunities for others.
Okay.
An entrepreneur by definition is somebody who wants to scale. And maybe there was a time when I kind of fit that definition. I had a company in Shanghai that was maybe 40 or 50 people and two businesses there. And it was about growth and it was about the fundamentals of business. Now I'm happily self-employed. The last thing I want in the world is an employee.
Right.
Like I don't want to scale. I don't want to make more problems for myself. So you see people, I mean, especially now, the young generation, the Gen Zs, you look on people's Instagram profile and everybody's an entrepreneur. And you say,
Right.
oh, what's the
Right.
business you do? I mean, do you have a mobile app that's just had its, 5 millionth download? I mean, have you raised your Series A round and what kind of entrepreneur you're? And then it turns out, they're self-employed basically.
Right.
Nothing
Right.
wrong with that. I mean, I'm
Nope.
happily self-employed.
Well, because you said happily self-employed, and I just brought up the photograph.
Yeah, and it's the laptop photo.
Okay. Well, the photo I have, let me describe it. It's you
Uh-huh.
sitting at a breakfast table. Okay. So it's at a breakfast table. It's sunny behind you.
Yeah,
It's on a
yeah,
beach. There are a whole row of parasols and it's like one after the other, these sort of like cots, day beds on the beach.
yeah, yeah,
It's very yellowish. The sky is blue. The decor of the tables is like this aqua/green.
yeah.
You're in jeans, but a kind of a light blue polo shirt,
Slacks actually.
slacks. Sorry, slacks.
Those are my travel slacks.
Your travel slacks. They're so nice.
Yeah, my dad was in the schmata business. He made pants. I can say slacks.
Okay, fine. You got this glorious plate of fruit. Like,
Hmm.
dude, are we having problems with roughage? That's a lot of fiber. That's amazing. And you're looking nicely at the photographer. The smile is nice. So what's this photo?
So this place is the private beach of Andrea Bocelli, the blind Italian singer.
Oh wow.
It's in Forti de Marmi in Italy, it's in Tuscany on the west coast of Italy. And I'm having a business meeting with my very important and very beloved client. What it was is I was sailing in Sardinia with some friends, and I noticed that my client was in Forti de Marmi. and I was planning to go to Rome afterwards, which I did. And I said, well, why don't I come up and we'll talk about this? I, I'm a ghostwriter basically, and
Hmm.
we wrote a best-selling book together. I'm not going to say what it is now because I'm a ghostwriter.
Hmm.
Um, and we wrote a book together, which is a Wall Street Journal and a USA Today bestseller.
Oh,
We
wow.
had the sales, yeah, we had the sales to be on the New York Times bestseller list, which is really the
Holy
holy
shit.
grail
Yes.
of books. I mean, I think the sales were like 50 or 60,000. It wasn't a blockbuster hit, but
Still,
it was quite, for a first book
yeah.
for both of us, by the way. He had never authored a book and I had never ghostwritten a book before.
Wow.
So that's quite a successful outcome. But we weren't on the New York Times list as it was explained to me because they didn't produce one that week. Every
Oh,
once in a very, very blue moon, very, very seldom, they just don't do one for whatever reason. Maybe the key editors are on vacation or whatever. So we had the numbers for it,
hmm.
but we just bad luck, really. It's
Oh,
a shame.
wow.
Um, but fear not, we're working on number two now.
Aaron,
So
okay. Did you know that I've ghostwritten a bunch of books?
I had no idea.
Yeah, no, I have. So we have that overlap. That's interesting. Okay.
What's your genre or what kind of books do you
Me,
write?
it's been nonfiction
Hmm.
books. So
And
not within the business, within the business management sort of field.
I didn't even know you were a writer at all. I mean,
But
and English is not your first language, or did you learn English and
how
Hebrew
dare you,
simultaneously?
sir? So I was born in Jerusalem. From the age
Uh-huh.
of one, I grew up in Montreal. Uh, so
Ah, okay,
So,
okay,
I speak English with a French accent sometimes when I'm a little bit fucked
okay,
up, but
okay.
no, no, no. But I'm basically
So all the
trilingual.
time then.
Yeah, yeah, a little bit. Okay, but back to this photo.
Uh-huh.
Holy shit! Like, so there's nobody else in the view. Like, it's only you, and it's like one of those
No,
like,
no. So actually, there's one person that's lying down, but
oh,
actually, right across from us, we didn't really understand this until later. There was this kind of older, funny-looking Italian gentleman that people kept kind of coming up to and talking to, and he seemed to be somebody important.
mm-hmm.
And we didn't know what it was, but we looked it up later. He was some kind of famous Italian comedian
Oh,
who apparently there was some scandal or surrounding him that he had sort of fallen on the wrong side of the Me Too movement. He'd done something untoward or something grotesque, or I don't
mm-hmm.
remember what it was. There was some kind of a cloud over his head, but he was still quite famous and quite recognized by Italian people.
Wow.
But there's another aspect of this photo. I mean, this is the day we launched. We solidified the concept for the second book. There's a lot of stories attached to this if we have time.
How long ago was this photo?
It was last summer. It was almost exactly 1 year ago.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay. And okay, so
Yeah.
invariably when people share, I tell them pick four photos that's going to curate our conversation. Okay. Now, maybe it's explicit in your head, maybe it's not, but why did you choose this photo to start?
Hmm. Great question. I did give quite some thought to the photos because I'm a storyteller
Hmm.
and and story or photos that have stories attached to them. Obviously it's more important to me than the quality of the photo or the artistry.
But it's a
Um,
beautiful photo. Whoever photographed it knows how to photograph. The composition's great, the lighting's great, your expression's
oh,
great. It's great.
well, I'll tell my client that, or maybe it was my client because we have a photo of us together that was
Nice.
taken by the waitress, but he took this one. I mean, look, it's hard to take a bad photo in Tuscany. Um, so I was in Rome, and we agreed to meet in Tuscany. He takes his family there every summer, and he's very successful. He's a fund manager, an investor, and just a very very intelligent guy and very capable guy. He started as a peasant in some tiny little mining town in Russia. He says his joke is that people say, "Oh, is that that sounds like that's in the middle of nowhere. And he says, oh no, it's much further than that. The middle of nowhere. Wow. That's the big
that's
time.
that's still close. Well, since you're in Israel,
Uh-huh.
the phrase in Israel is, go to the end of the world and turn left, right? So
Yes.
kind of like
Yeah,
that.
it's something like that.
Nice.
Very similar. So I found out he was in this Forti de Marmi, and I was in Rome. So I went to Pisa. I spent a night in Pisa, and then I rented a Vespa,
Mm-hmm.
and I drove. It's like maybe an hour drive up to Forti de Marmi on a scooter, and it's
Nice.
like 150 cc's or 200 cc's. It's a really, it's a glorified moped,
It's
but
fun.
it was enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's fun, especially in Italy. I mean, being on a Vespa, they give you a helmet with the Italian flag colors, and
Ciao. Ciao.
and I'm wearing slacks. Don't forget I'm wearing slacks. So, so I mean, we'll get into this more about my travel life, my nomad
Mm-hmm.
life, but I mean, the nomad life can get exhausting after a while, and the magic that I felt when I first started this life has faded,
Okay.
and oftentimes I'm just tired of traveling, and I long for home. But this was a day when all the magic came back. I'm driving north alone on this Vespa, going
Mm.
to see one of my favorite people in the world,
Oh.
somebody that I made a baby with, basically. As a
Mm-hmm.
nonfiction writer yourself, I mean, you
Mm-hmm.
understand the tremendous amount of research and validation, and writing footnotes and rewriting,
Mm-hmm.
and having readers and editing. I mean, just to create a serious book, it's a massive undertaking. And I wrote most of it with him during Corona, so it was
Wow.
really kind of an emotional
Wow. Wow.
creation as well. So here I am going to see him, but it was a beautiful day, and the Tuscan mountains are in the background, and the wind is blowing through my hair was under the helmet, but it's blowing on
Mm-hmm.
my face.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a moment, and I'd just come from this beautiful sailing trip with old friends in Sardinia, and then I'd run into this friend from Australia by coincidence
Mm.
in Rome. That's a whole nother
Wow.
great story, and that gets into my favorite subject of coincidence. Well, we're either going to talk about that during this conversation or after. So
Okay.
coincidence is where I hang my hat.
Nice.
So, but in this case, I just all the beauty and magic of travel came back to me on this day, and I was just very, very grateful for the ability to travel, for the lifestyle that my work and has afforded me. And I'm going up to go see this client that I haven't seen since the book came out.
Mm-hmm.
I probably only met him 2 or 3 times in person.
Oh wow.
So
Okay.
it was a reunion. It was like a celebration of this baby that we created together, and on a beautiful day, and in Italy, no less. So I was just very, very happy that day, and I think it shows in the photo how carefree and joyous of a day it was.
Absolutely. And because you just took a sip of your coffee and you said how joyous it was, and you have a massive plate of fruit in front of your face, we're going to go on to the next photo.
Okay. You're smart.
Now hold
You
on.
know that if you let me run with the story, it'll be 3 hours later on this podcast.
I know you because I am you.
Funny.
Now here's what I knew was going to happen.
Which
First
one
of
are
all,
we looking at?
okay, so the one I'm looking, I'll describe it in a second. But what I want to convey to people is, let's just say in the world population, there's this tiny and there's a big pie, and there's the thinnest sliver of people who live this life, who out of design or for whatever, like luck or whatever, have configured their lives to be able to do things that is just I just met you, by chance in a subway, as you said, and then
Coincidence.
yeah, it was just really great. And then I really want to and the podcast is about inspiring people to make every second count. So
Hmm.
the photo now, Mount Kilimanjaro.
Yeah.
Congratulations, you're now at Uhuru Peak.
Uhuru Peak.
Okay,
Yeah.
in Tanzania. That doesn't look like you. There's somebody is that you? Standing
That's
with your
me.
arms splayed? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Okay. So your facial hair looks lighter, just the exposure. You're wearing the
No,
sort of the
I started coloring my beard. I was dating this really young I was dating
okay,
this
okay.
really young girl for a while, and she's like,
Ah,
you should dye your beard.
awesome,
And I'm like,
awesome.
that's such a dad thing to do. I'm not gonna do that. And she hounded me for weeks about this, and it was New Year's Eve,
Bitches
and
change you, man. Bitches change
yeah.
you.
So I said, fine, fine, I'll do it. She bought like this. It was in Barcelona, so it's called it's just for men, but in
Yeah.
Barcelona it's just for men. Um, so just for men,
Host
just
for
for
men.
men.
Yeah, yeah,
And she put it on. I'm like, and I looked in the mirror and it was going black. And I'm like, no, no, wash it off. I thought it was gonna be,
yeah.
I was
Okay.
gonna have this port wine stain on my face. And we washed it out, and it all went the way it was supposed to. And I'm like, fucking hell, I look 10 years younger.
Okay.
And so now I do it.
Okay. So wait. Just so okay, so the photograph is you with arms wide. You're wearing sort
Yes.
of winter gear. There's snow on the
Yes.
ground or frost on the ground. You're at the top of the peak, however many meters that is, and you just
5,895 meters.
okay.
Don't give that short shrift. I had to walk up every one.
Perfect. Well done, sir. So you prefaced this by saying a few weeks before you were in Barcelona buying.
No,
Okay.
no. The only this is well before that.
Ah, okay, okay.
The only relationship is this was kind of on the eve of my 50th birthday.
Oh, okay, okay.
So yes, the gray was coming in. There might be some snow in my beard as well.
Right,
I'm not
right.
sure. But you said it didn't look like me because my beard looked different. Yeah, that's what's happening.
Okay, so you're framing it this way: climbing the peak when you're turning 50.
Yes.
How, like, why are you framing it this way?
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Well, I mean, turning 50 is a big number. Like you talk to 80-year-olds who say they feel 25 inside,
Mm-hmm.
and you kind of guffaw.
Mm-hmm.
If guffawing is something that you do,
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, yeah, right, you're 25. Come on. But that's the truth. As you get older, you realize that you're always the same inside,
Yep.
and your body changes, but your spirit is really the same. And I've always been an adventurer. I come
Mm-hmm.
from a relatively small city in the U.S., St. Louis. It's like 1 million, 2 million people,
Mm-hmm.
including the suburbs and sort of the greater metropolitan area.
Sure.
But it's in the middle of the country. It's landlocked. It's kind of, not country style, but it's Midwestern. So doesn't have a big city attitude.
Right.
And most people who are born there and raised there stay there and kind of don't travel outside of the area and tend to live within a few, I almost said kilometers, but since it's St. Louis, miles of where they were born. And I was just the opposite. Couldn't wait to leave, couldn't wait to start the adventure. Went to school at New York University because it was in New York City and Greenwich Village. I mean, that was the only criteria
Mm-hmm.
that I cared about, is it had to be in the middle of the center of the universe. And it's just been one adventure since, from moving to Hong Kong to Shanghai to, the times when I did consider myself an entrepreneur and taking big risks in business and taking, big weights on my shoulder. But then, to leaving China and to moving to Israel, and then to embarking on the nomad life for the last 5 years.
Wow.
And so it's just, adventure and venturing into the unknown has always been a driving force in my life. I'm not really, a mountaineer. I like to hike,
Mm-hmm.
but I have no aspirations of climbing Everest or doing anything that requires technical skill or includes real danger.
Mm-hmm.
But nonetheless, I mean, as mountaineering goes, Kilimanjaro is achievable by anybody with a reasonable level of fitness and mental fortitude. But it's achievable. It's hard,
Yeah. No, it's
really
nice.
hard.
Yeah, it does.
So I just decided, I was in Zanzibar during the pandemic, or the latter part of the pandemic, just before the vaccines were released. and I was there for about 3 months, and it was beautiful and
Oh,
wonderful.
wow.
But I just thought, I'm here alone. Coming up on my 50th birthday. I need to do something to kind of mark the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just thought, here's a new challenge. Here's a sort of a milestone
Mm-hmm.
of sorts, a physical milestone that I can twin with my life milestone.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked into it and I found that it was possible. It's not something that you do alone. People tend to do it in groups. So I was fortunate enough. I found a group of like 30, 35-year-old Polish people, really wonderful people that had a group. And as it happened, one of their group members tested for COVID, tested positive at the airport. They were testing them at the
Whoa.
airport
Shit.
and wasn't able to join the group.
So
And
that.
so I got her slot.
Ah, okay, okay,
Yeah,
okay. Nice. So did you grow up noticing or knowing about Bob Ross, the painter?
of course.
Of
Happy Little
course.
Trees.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you know about happy accidents?
Yeah, happy accidents. Well, that goes to coincidence.
Sure. Yes. Yes.
That was a happy accident for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a really nice group to be with because
Nice.
it's an easy walk. I mean, it was 6 days. It was 4 days up, 2 days down.
Oh, nice.
And the first 3 days are really lovely. It's strenuous, but it's a hike.
Yeah.
There's no real there's no real difficulty. But then that last day, that's tough. At this point, the altitude is high enough that you really haven't slept properly
Mm-hmm.
for 2 nights.
Mm-hmm.
I'd slept maybe 2 or 3 hours the previous night, and then on the night of the ascent, you don't really sleep. You're tossing and turning out of worry and out of cold and altitude. And maybe I slept on and off for 2 hours, and
Mm-hmm.
you wake up at like 2 or 3 in the morning to start the ascent, and it's a trudge. You're going one foot in front of the other. The Tanzanians have a phrase called pole pole,
Mm-hmm.
which means slowly, slowly, liat liat.
Nice.
And that's what you do. I mean, you just fix your mind on the goal and you put one foot in front of the other. But for me, I mean, especially given the significance of the age thing, I was the oldest person in the whole
Right.
troop. Not that,
Right.
not that, not that older people haven't climbed it. I think that the oldest have been, 80s even.
Sure.
But I was the oldest one in the crew, and I wasn't going to be the one to give up. That is really hard, and it's cold, and you can't breathe properly, and you're
Okay.
stuffed into all kinds of gear.
Sure.
So, no, I'm not going to let you interrupt me because this is the important part of the
Keep going.
story.
Keep going. Rock it.
um, you have to create a conversation with yourself. There's the little voice inside that says, "Oh fuck, I'm tired. I want to stop." And then there's a voice that says, I'm allowed to curse on this podcast? It's too late for that, I know.
The only people who listen to it are 3 and 4 year olds, but yeah, go ahead. Let's teach them some swear words.
Little bitches. So it's about time. So no, but you do have to have a conversation with the little bitch inside of you, and we all have it. And I think as men, we struggle with that, especially as men of any sort of artistic bent, or any sensitive bent. There's this voice inside of you which wants to complain and wants to give up and is hurting and is emotional, and you have to summon strength from the master side of you, the one who's the achiever, who's gone on adventures and who's traveled the world and who's taken on challenging business pursuits and even in your case the challenge of you have children, yeah?
One, yes.
Yeah, so the challenge of children. In my case, the challenge of marriage and divorce.
Mm-hmm.
We've all gone through ups and downs, successes and failures. And so you just have to marshal the strong person in you. And every time the little bitch speaks up and tries to say, "Oh, I'm tired," or "My legs hurt," or I can't do it, you immediately have to shut that voice down. You have to
Okay.
just say, "Shut up! I'm not listening to you. Shut up!" Like there'll be time to complain later,
Okay.
and it's just one step in front of the other. And when you think, "Oh, when's the next break going to come?" Oh, you shut up. No,
Okay.
poly, step, one more step. And that's it. You just have to be dog-headed about it, and just one more step, one more step. And you know, most people, I think men and women alike, but perhaps more men than women in some sense, can remember a time in their life when they had to marshal that kind of resolve and strength. You know, and certainly people who've had to fight cancer, or who've gone through war, or, you know, had real problems, not
Hmm.
just climbing Tanzania so I can talk about my cool photo on a podcast. You know, but it is a teaching moment, because those sorts of moments in life stay with you. You know, we talked at the top of this podcast, I'm not sure if it's on the recording, about how photography can be a way of just solidifying memories, experiences in life. You can go back to those
Hmm.
images, and you can remember those moments, and you can draw on them and say, hey, I used to box. So boxing was another one for me. That could have been a photo. It's not
Sure.
one that I picked, but it could have been like the arms raising above my head.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
I have that photo. That's a significant photo in my life. But you can draw on these experiences, and when you get into hard times, or when you're taking on a significant achievement, you can remember that, hey, I know how to do this.
Right.
You know, I know how to marshal the strong side of me and shut up the little bitch inside of me.
Well, I'm not the little bitch inside of you. I'm the little bitch on the other side of the world from you. And I'm going to say, let's move on to the next photo.
All right, let's do it. Let's do it, biatch.
This is beautiful. Totally gorgeous. You're doing a selfie, and behind you
Yeah,
is are three people holding it. Well, two
yeah.
people are holding up their arms up, kind of waving hello.
Uh-huh.
There's a man and another man and a woman wearing. Okay, everybody's wearing glasses. You're wearing these really perfect sunglasses. It looks like you're on a sailboat that's roughly 15, 20 feet ish.
Pretty good. Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
It's a beautiful day. There are not too many clouds in the background. I mean, it's probably at around noon because the sun seems, pretty much high overhead. Okay. Yeah, I think you titled this Exploration.
Okay. Oh, I give titles. Good. So 15, 20 feet, did you say?
I don't know. Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Just change that to meters, and you've got it. It's about 16 meters. It's 49 feet.
Holy
That's
shit.
a
Okay.
that's Yeah, it's a Sun Odyssey Jeannot 49.1 from 2009. It's for sale, by the way. If we have any sailors, if we have any sailors looking for a boat,
Okay.
the
Okay.
guy in the center, Chris John, he's Swiss.
Actually, I do know somebody who might want to buy a boat.
Yeah, it's in Agios Nikolaos, Crete.
That's
Um,
hilarious.
so yeah, put him in touch. I think he's asking 140,000 euros.
I'm not that guy. Okay, so what's this photo, man?
This is just from a couple of months ago, en
Oh
route
wow,
from Crete to Haifa, to Israel.
wow.
So we sailed from Crete to Haifa, and then we stayed in Israel for a week, and then we sailed to Cyprus, and we meant to stay there for 3 days, but the wind pinned us down.
Oh
So we
wow.
were there for a week, and then we had to go up north to Antalya and over to Kash to try to get around the storm, but we didn't succeed.
I have to say, I've been to Antalya in Turkey, and I've been to Kash. Isn't that fun? Beautiful. I love
Yeah.
that place.
Well, we didn't actually land there. I mean,
Hmm.
the Turkish immigration authorities do not know of our presence. They do now.
Ah.
So we just hung around in the bay to get shelter from the wind.
Hmm.
And then we went along the coastline. So our intention was to get up and over the windstorm, but it just kept blowing. It was like 35 knot
I
winds.
don't know this world at all, man. Like, what are you
Mm.
talking about? Let us in.
So I was locked down in Israel for 6 months during the pandemic. That's when I wrote the book.
Okay.
Most of the book. We started it quite a few months earlier, but that was when the meat of the matter
Hmm.
was executed. And and so at one point, during the various phases of lockdown, you could leave your house, you couldn't leave your house at all. You could only go to groceries or the pharmacy. You could go out for exercise. They changed it all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
And so it turns out one of the things you could do, which was considered a sport, was sailing. And I was tired of running, and they wouldn't let you surf. And I don't like to bicycle. So they said sailing was a sport that you could leave your house for. So I signed up for sailing lessons.
Okay. What? What?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So I signed up for sailing lessons. The sailing club in Tel Aviv Marina. It's called Sea Time, and you can learn how to sail a little sailboat, like a
Mm-hmm.
under 10 meters. It's like 21 feet, 7 meter boat. It's 21. It's first Beneteau first 21, and you can learn to sail it in like 5 or 6 lessons.
Holy shit.
Um, and so I did that, and then shortly after I learned, they locked down they locked down again, like a serious lockdown. And I said, okay, I don't want to do this. So I flew to Croatia. This is some maybe 5 months before the Zanzibar trip and the Kilimanjaro
Got it.
ascent. So I went to Croatia, and I found that I could rent the exact same boat. So although I didn't have a lot of experience sailing, I felt more comfortable renting a boat because it was the same one, and the
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
mechanics of it were the same. Everything I knew about sailing at that point, I knew with that boat. So I put there was like a Facebook group that was called like Nomads in Split or Expats in Split or something in Split, Croatia. And so I put a posting and I said, hey, I just arrived. I don't have any friends, but I have a sailboat that I rented. Who wants to be my friend? And so,
Nice.
it's one of the challenges of the nomad life. It's like you're constantly starting over, and you don't know anybody, and you don't have anybody to hang out with, and it can be lonely. And so immediately 20 people raised their hand and said, yeah, I'd like to do that. So I said, whoever wants to go, I'm going to be at this bar tonight, come by. And so suddenly there was a party at this bar about
Amazing.
me. And so I talked to people, and I arranged little groups of 3 or 4 that I would take out every day for a couple of hours. And then the ones that I really kind of got on with, we sailed to Var, which is one of the outlying islands there, which is really wonderful, and to Brach, and I found my crew.
Amazing.
And I've been in touch with these people. Also, we were in Var, and it was me and my sailing gang, and this young American guy. I mean, we were kind of older. There's a
Mm-hmm.
American woman who's in her 30s, and then these French brothers who were, I think, the younger brothers in his early to mid 40s, and the older brothers about my age.
Mm-hmm.
And we were sitting having a gay old time, and this young 20-something guy named Russell comes up, and he saw us having fun. He's like, "Hey guys, I'm here alone. I don't have any friends. Could I join you?" And we're like, "Yeah." He's like, "Hey, you're a Ron Alfasi. You're talking to
That's
strangers."
awesome.
And so
Nice.
he joined us, and then I'm like, "Hey, we're going sailing tomorrow. Why don't you come?" So I mean, that's part of the magic of the travel life, is you meet people who are on the same path and come from.
I have to interrupt for a second.
Please,
Okay.
please, please.
Because this is the thing, man. This is the thing. Okay, so I want to rewind the tape a little bit. What are your parents like? Are your parents
Dead.
nomads? Oh, sorry.
Are they what?
Nomads, like where does this thing come from?
Wandering Jew.
Okay. But here's the thing. Like you're like here, okay. You're getting totally fucked off by being stuck in lockdown, and you're just like, the only thing I can do is I can learn how to sail. I mean, it could have been learn how to
Yeah.
skateboard.
My instinctive answer to that is wrong. I was about to say, I don't know, you're just born with it, and I've always wanted to leave, but that's not actually true. There's 2 reasons that I'm an avid traveler. So I've been to, like, I don't know, about 60 countries, but I go back to the same ones over and over again. I'll go
Mm-hmm.
back to Greece on Saturday for, like, I spent 3. Well, we have one more photo. Yeah, we'll get into that. So I go back to the same ones. I've been to Thailand like 15 times, and
Yep.
Bali 3 or 4 times, as have you, I'm sure. But in Mexico a whole bunch of times. But I think it started from 2 things. One is my mother took us to Israel for the whole summer,
Mm-hmm.
like 2 or 3 times when I was a teenager, early
Okay.
teenager, like just
Nice.
before, after my bar mitzvah. It was like part of my Zionist indoctrination. And look, I became a citizen. It worked.
Well done.
The brainwashing was successful.
Hmm.
Um, so I think part of it was the opportunity at a fairly young age to not just travel somewhere, but to live somewhere and
Right.
to start to learn a new language and to realize that cultures are different and people are different. And that later on, of course, like you, translated into working overseas and being a lifelong. I haven't lived in the United States since 1994, and I was there. And, I was there briefly after I got divorced in 2012 for
Right.
less than a year.
Yeah, I remember that actually.
Yeah, but if that aside, I haven't lived in the United States since I was 24, 25 years old, and so part of it, I think, is going abroad at a young age and having the experience that going abroad is not just a short-term vacation. Like,
Hmm.
a lot of Americans go to France, and it's like a comedian talked about it once. He talked about how Americans view, the existence of France is just there, like as entertainment, as if it's just there to entertain Americans on
You're
holiday,
right. Right.
right?
It's interesting because you have that desire for immersion, and then what I like. Okay, so one of the books that makes a lot of sense to me as a sort of technical nonfiction book is this thing called Design in Nature. I had the author on the podcast,
Oh,
and he
nice.
basically says that everything flows. Let's just say
Uh-huh.
paths of least resistance to
Okay.
where they want to go. Right. So in your
Okay.
case,
Yes.
for whatever reason, you got called or you felt this draw to sailing because it was convenient and it was something you could do to get out of the house. And
Hmm.
that little decision in the middle of the pandemic, like I thought you were a sailor. I look at your photos, it's like you're sailing and there are boats and everything. You're just like, no, this is something you just started.
Well, I mean, I'm getting there. To become a really experienced sailor, it takes
Sure.
years.
Of course,
No,
of course.
the boat that's in this photo, I sailed on this boat the first time last summer or in June.
Okay,
I
recent.
had been looking, yeah, I've been looking for opportunities to kind of up my sea miles and my experience. And it's hard. There's all these sailing forums where, somebody will say, "Hey, I need crew to go from here to here. Who's in?" And there'll be, a bunch of people that raise their hand and say yes. And then the one who actually gets the opportunity is rarely the one with the most experience, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. It's like there's a cute girl in the lot,
Sure, sure, of course.
all these dirty old men are like, "Yeah, we'll take her." That's human nature. Yeah.
That's how the world works,
But
man.
but largely speaking, the supply and demand balance is tipped in favor of the the boat owners or the
Mm-hmm.
captains. So I've been trying for a while, and then this guy posted in one of the forums and said we need somebody to go with us from the Azores Islands,
Nice.
which are Portuguese, but
Yep.
they're smack dab in the middle of the Atlantic. They're like halfway to Greenland.
Amazing.
Back like to Cape. It was supposed to be all the way to Gibraltar.
Okay.
I only went to Lagos, which is on the southern coast of Portugal,
Mm-hmm.
not to be confused with the Lagos in Africa.
Right.
It was a really rough journey. It was a week, but we
Mm.
hit 35, even 40 knot winds. We had 4 to 5 meter waves
Wow. Oh,
for the
fuck.
North Americans. For the Americans, that's like 12 to 12 to 15, yeah, 12 to 15 feet. And it was rough. It was a really hard journey, and I was inexperienced. It was the first time I ever did a night watch.
Mm-hmm.
We were all alone at the helm.
Holy shit.
You're wearing a life jacket and a harness, and you're tethered in because the boat is doing this, and the waves are crashing over, and it's foggy as hell, and you can't see anything.
Oh, wow.
And the AIS alarm will go off a few times, warning you that there's a cargo ship or usually on these voyages, you're all alone. You don't see any other ships for hours and hours and hours, or days even.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes you'll be kind of near a route, and there'll be a tanker or a military vessel or cargo, sometimes all at once.
Mm-hmm.
And the alarm goes off, and you go. We didn't have the AIS system, the warning system mounted on the deck. So you got to go down below and look at a tiny
Fuck.
little screen
Yeah.
that shows the heading and the size of the vessel and its speed. And you got to try to figure out, like, well, are we in a collision course?
Right,
Is
right,
this a problem? And not only that, but what's the right course correction so that
right.
I can get us out of danger? And my biggest fear as an inexperienced sailor is like that we're on an okay heading,
Mm-hmm.
that there's no real danger, but then I change things because I'm stupid,
Yeah, yeah.
and then I actually put us into danger. And when it's a clear day, even at night, it's not a problem. You have, even for really fast moving vessels, you have a really long amount of time to see what's going on. And, there's lights on the ship, which
Sure.
help you to understand the bearing. And, if you have any experience at all, it's not so hard to avoid.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's super foggy and you can't see the lights and you don't have any experience and the boat is rolling with the waves like
Yeah.
crazy, it's freaking scary.
No shit.
So I was thrown in the deep end. I was really, it was the least experienced crew on board
Wow.
by far. But fortunately for me, the captain who's pictured in this photo, Christian, he's just a stellar human being. I have learned so much from him about sailing and about life.
Amazing.
This guy is Swiss, and he's really a genius level intelligence. He's a really, really smart guy. But
Amazing.
he's an alcoholic who doesn't
Okay.
drink anymore. He's sober for
I have to
10, 20
say that
years.
because you outed him as an alcoholic, we have to move on
Yeah.
to the next photo.
Really?
Yeah, we do. It's like
Is that,
this all moves on so quickly. We only have
wow, it's a
so
shame.
much time.
It's a shame because there's so many good stories about Christian
Of
and
course.
and this boat and this vessel, and like there's so much to learn from this guy in this photo. But all right, if you
Aaron,
want
you're
to deny,
hilarious.
if you want to deny your, I'm going to talk
Listener,
really fast about the next photo so we can circle back.
we can if you like.
But if you want to deny your listeners from some of the best life lessons, it's fine. Fine.
You're
It's your
turning it
podcast.
around. Yeah, you're turning it around like, yeah, it's my fucking show. No, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
All right. So what's the let's go on.
So the next photo, because listen, man, I could talk to you for days, but the next photo is a breakfast table.
Yeah.
There's a laptop there.
Yeah.
There's a coffee that looks that it's been drunk a little bit. Maybe a little cup with yogurt, could be. There's a glass of fruit juice, and behind is this incredible scene that looks like Greece.
Yeah.
Not that I've ever been, but it's like the blue, 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 blue sky, beautiful ocean. It's an islandish feel to it. There's this sort of the different kind of layered houses that all in white. I don't even know what they use for the houses to be so bright white.
I think they paint them.
Oh, okay, it's paint. Okay,
I think so.
so this looks like your morning thing, and it's called Effort. You called it Effort by Aaron Landis.
Okay. I don't know why I gave those names, but this is Santa fucking Rini. This isn't
Okay.
just Greece, and of course it's yogurt. It's Greek yogurt, the best yogurt, the
Okay.
only yogurt that counts.
Okay.
So this is what I should have called this is another tough day at the office, because
Oh, you
if
poor thing.
you follow my Facebook and my Instagram, so you know. So I've been in Nomad for. I thought you were going to bring these out in order, so I thought this was going to be number one. Like we've backed
Okay.
into this. Like you already understand, dear listeners, that I am a nomad. I've been traveling for 5 years, so even through the pandemic, as we know. So it started off as 3 months. I broke up with my girlfriend and we shared an apartment together in Israel. And I didn't want to pay 2 rents because Tel Aviv was incredibly expensive. I think it was just voted as the most expensive city in the world recently, like relative to income and such. Obviously,
Yeah.
it's not Zurich or Tokyo, or Hong Kong for that matter.
Right. Right.
But it's really crazy expensive. So I didn't want to pay 2 rent. So I said, okay, you just keep the furniture and stuff for now, and I'll travel for 3 months until the lease is up. But it's been 5 years.
Wow.
And so, I mean, you didn't let me finish why I'm a traveler. There is another reason why I became a traveler, why I am a traveler. And it's really even more of an influential reason than going on the family trip as a child, and more than just the innate wanderlust that I seem to have. It's because of the Grateful Dead. Are you a Deadhead by any chance?
Nope. I'm not a dead. I can't. I couldn't
Tisk
recognize the
tisk.
tune.
Well, maybe
Is
we're
that
going
their
to change
is that
that.
their hit single? Tisk tisk.
Yes, yes. Tisk tisk. Um, so the Grateful Dead were, I can definitively say were, because there was this sort of legacy offshoot of the Grateful Dead after Jerry Garcia, the leader and guitarist and soul of the band, died. There was this offshoot called Dead and Co. that they played with John Mayer, but they just had their last concert recently. So the
Mm-hmm.
Grateful Dead were this psychedelic rock band that were born in the height of the hippie psychedelic days of the 1960s. And their claim to fame is that as they travel around and tour, which is basically, these long extended tours. It's not like these artists who tour once every few years and they have 20 shows in the summer and then that's it. Grateful Dead would
Mm-hmm.
have like 30 shows over a summer and they would sometimes do a winter tour and they would travel every year and just go on and on and on. And so as they travel, their fans don't wait for them to come to a
Mm-hmm.
city near them. They travel with them.
Right.
And so when you're a Deadhead and you travel, you don't go to a show, you go to a whole tour. And so you either have your own vehicle or you go with friends or you hitch a ride. So when I was like 16, 17 years old, I went to my first Grateful Dead show and I just became incredibly enamored of this scene of these crazy hippie adventurers who were going from place to place with the band. And so I became one of them. And
Wow.
and I would start a season with basically, I mean, no tickets, maybe a ticket or two that I managed to buy. It wasn't like now you go online and you buy them. You had to mail away. And it was so hard to
Mm-hmm.
get these tickets that people would decorate the envelopes of their mailing, their request for tickets. And like they would make marble the paper and they would do artwork on it in the hopes that their letter would stand out so that the ticket people would pick their letter and open it. This is
Wow.
how fanatical Deadheads are.
That's crazy. Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
And then you camp out. There's usually like a parking lot, and there's a whole scene where people are selling, sandwiches and clothing from Guatemala
Mm-hmm.
and hippie bracelets and drugs, of course, and nitrous oxide balloons and jewelry and like all this stuff. And so it's a whole community around the scene. Anybody who's listening is a Deadhead immediately knows what I'm talking about.
Of course. Of
Um,
course.
Anybody who's ever been to a Grateful Dead show or to a Dead and Company show. And so I would start the season with maybe a couple of tickets if I was lucky, and maybe a couple $100 in my pocket if I was lucky. And I would somehow make it through the whole tour, or most
Oh
of the
wow.
tour. And I would somehow manage to, somebody would give me a ticket, or I would like sell something. Like I would go to the 7-Eleven or the grocery store and get like cream cheese and cucumbers and tomatoes and bread and make sandwiches and then sell them in the parking lot for enough money to buy a ticket.
Aaron, I had no idea.
And it was like in a lot of ways it was my first go at the travel life, but also at the entrepreneurial life, where you're
Yep.
constantly lacking in resources and you have no fucking idea how you're going to get to the next show, how you're going to get a ticket, where you're going to sleep, what you're going to eat. You don't have
Mm-hmm.
any idea. And yet, because you're young and stupid and you don't know better, it all works out. And I've grown
Right.
up, I'm 52 now, and I've had some rough goes at life and I've had some ups and downs. And thank God my health has never been a problem. I mean, that's the only real problem you can have.
Mm-hmm.
Knock wood. So, but I've been through the meat grinder a few times, and
Sure.
I've become hardened and cynical, and I've closed myself off a lot of ways. I'm an atheist, and I probably have a shorter attention span or patience span than I used to, but it's good to harken back and remember. Talk about memories again. Maybe I should have pulled up a photo of myself with hair down to my ass and a big beard. That'll really shock
So
your
I
viewers.
totally cannot picture you as a deadhead. I had no idea. And as you're saying this, by the way,
You'll have to have me back on the show again and have a whole new
no,
set
of
of photos.
course, for sure. But like as you're saying this, there's the photo of Santor fucking Rini. Is that how you said it? What's the
Santorini.
correct? Okay,
Santorini.
Santorini.
The most beautiful place on planet Earth. And I've seen most places
Okay,
on planet Earth. So I can say that it's definitely the top three of anybody's list. It's
amazing.
extraordinary. Everybody listening, Santorini is on your must visit list. You have to go.
So, okay, so how do we zero in on, instead of this just being like, because in a way it's about communicating and inspiring people to kind of go, oh, wait a second, this is possible, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, you as a young kid get hooked onto the music and the community, and you start following, and you're like, you're being entrepreneurial, you're making sandwiches, selling them, all this stuff,
Yeah.
and just so you can like wander with them, and then
Yeah.
somehow that brings you as far as Shanghai, brings you as far as Hong Kong, it brings you as far as
Yeah.
Greece.
I'm so glad you asked the question that way because I got a great connection point. My first real job, as I was working in the art department of a now defunct travel magazine called Travel Holiday. And it was a
Okay.
wonderful place to work. It was part of the Reader's Digest Publications group, and it was amazing photographers and authors, and and it was like I was just looking for a job, any job. I graduated
Right.
with an art degree, for
Hmm.
all the use that was. And it was like they hired me, and it was like the perfect job for me. I worked with wonderful people, really great bosses. Hi, Lou DiLorenzo. Hi, Amy Jaffe. Hi, Maggie Simmons. You're famous.
Nice.
And I spent all day, every day for like 2.5 years looking at these extraordinary photos. I
Wow.
wish I had a great enough memory and knowledge of famous photographers to call them out by name
Mhm.
because they were really Dennis somebody, I don't know, because they were really famous photographers. And this is before.
Just like, a name that really pulls, has some serious gravitas.
Yeah,
Dennis.
Bill Black and Stephanie Syrup. Where are you when I need you? That's the
Nice.
photo editors.
Nice.
So I'm still friends with these people. I mean, there's an amazing group of people, and I was so lucky to work there because the standards of quality were so high, and I learned how to do things the right way. I mean, my art director, Lou Dorenzo, is like the most anal retentive guy on earth before me.
Hmm.
Now it's me. So I mean, I really learned about quality. And we used to just labor over the reproduction of the photographs. And in these days, you had to send stuff out to Zytex if you wanted to take out
Right.
there was no Photoshop, but there was Photoshop was there, but nothing was really digital yet. I mean,
Not
we
the
were doing
same.
paste up boards still. It was just desktop publishing was just starting. They hired me because I knew how to use Photoshop. I was like the only one, in
Hmm.
Adobe Illustrator. And so we would send like photos out to Zytex and we'd say like adjust the quarter tones, adjust the red and the quarter tones by 3%. I mean, we just labored over this. There was this whole
Yeah, yeah,
language
yeah.
of photography and cropping. And I mean, I learned about design at this place and I learned about really what made great artwork and photography. And, we used to have, you didn't just go online at Shutterstock. We'd had these stock photo books, when we
Sure.
needed
Yep.
stock. And you'd look through them and you'd call them up and make an order on the phone. It was crazy.
Yep.
And then we would do these, and then we'd get films in and we would get like match prints to
Hmm.
check out the layouts. And, we used to do the paste ups. There was a hot wax machine that I would roll the.
I love that your excitement has completely hijacked your brain.
Yeah. Well, I later started a printing business
Do
and
you
I
remember the
became.
question?
Yeah, we're getting there. It was like, yeah, not really. The question was how did you get to the nomad life? I inspire people to do this. But but the,
Yes.
but you're right. You're right. I got because it is a photography show. So I've indulged myself in sharing my passion for the graphic
Aaron,
arts.
this is love. It's just love, man. It's
But
totally
well,
love. I
I
love it.
ended up. I mean, my subject that I care about is coincidence and connecting the dots. And when I
Okay.
have you on my podcast as my very first guest, we're going to talk about this afterwards.
Okay.
That's the thing I want to talk to you about. Then we'll dig into that, connecting the dots and coincidence. But yeah, later on I became a printer, basically a print broker, and I produced coffee table books of
Oh, wow.
beautiful photography, like things like we worked with this guy Marius Jovisa from Lithuania who does these amazing books. His famous book is called Unseen Lithuania, and he did these aerial photography of all Lithuania and put the country on the
Hmm.
map. This is before drones were popular.
Wow, wow.
We didn't even get to talk about drone photography, dude.
An hour goes by so fast.
Yeah, we're kind of already over, aren't we?
It's already been an hour, brother.
So should I give you like the 10-second? I can do it really fast. So I was working at Travel Holiday magazine. I was dreaming about traveling the world. I was chomping at the bit about traveling the world. But I was a young kid starting his career. I was like an art assistant. I wasn't even a designer. I used to do the paperwork mostly. And I had no money. And just by like having this dream, I sort of willed it into existence. By coincidences that we don't have time to talk about, unfortunately, I was offered a job in Hong Kong and I moved to Hong Kong. And then by other coincidences, I became a sort of an entrepreneur and I started a business. And one thing led to another, as it does in life. And that's the really interesting story.
Yeah.
And then you roll the tape back forward. And I had businesses and I sold a business and I made some money and I got divorced and I lost most of it. And I moved and I moved to Israel and all these things that happened. I recreated my career as a ghostwriter and as a sort of a small PR agency, you could say. TheContentCompanyLimited.com. Plug.
For sure. Say it again so people can go check it out.
TheContentCompanyLimited.com. I work with
Nice.
tech entrepreneurs and venture capitalists in the tech world. Mostly articles, but also books.
Awesome.
So, I went from dreaming of travel, but not being able to, including we did this article, we did this feature story on Santorini. And I was dreaming about going to this place. So when I finally got to Santorini, during the pandemic, it was the very first day that Greece was open for tourism. So I was like the first tourist there. There was nobody there. I had the island to myself, which is the best way to see it. It was amazing. And so it was a real, come full circle moment. Because I remembered like so many years ago, I had nothing. I had no career. I had no money. I had no understanding about how to get there. And then I'd been through entrepreneurial fits and starts and some successes and some failures. And then I had to recreate my career after a period of real uncertainty, a real wandering period.
Yep.
And now I make plenty of money and I make what I need to make for a single lifestyle. And I can travel while I'm doing it. So it started by accident, but I've had 5 blessed years of traveling the world. I've been to 30 or 40 countries in this time and had so many great experiences. And I work remotely. I just need, like we're talking today, laptop, internet connection, and the nuance of how do you market to people, how do you find customers.
Sure.
That's probably another podcast, but it is possible. So that's the life I'm living now. I do this. This photo should have been called Another Tough Day at the Office, because I periodically post photos of my laptop and a cup of coffee at some amazing new place that I'm traveling, and I call it Another Tough Day at the Office, and my friends with corporate jobs hate me.
And that is the best way to end the conversation. Aaron, thank you. That was awesome.
Thank you. It was really, you promised that it would be, one of the best conversations of my life. And I'm like, yeah. Pull your head in, mate. I'll tofa letzmacha.
Okay.
But yeah, no, it was really great, really amazing.
Shooting it raw? Yes. Shooting it raw.